Now here's an episode I've been dreading. Look, all media is inherently political. It can't help it. I'm not qualified to discuss these topics, and this series is dedicated to just cataloging the Famicom games. So I'm not prepared to give you a 15-minute essay on how Famicom ties into the Japanese perception of the noble classes, or the sexual politics of Japan and how they're reflected in Valis. I know enough to recognize the themes. I don't know enough to really talk about them. But here's Manhattan Police, a game about an openly corrupt, violent, racist institution. A game for which it's a real crapshoot if this episode's going to go up at a time right after they've done something particularly horrific. This video can't be about the NYPD, but I also couldn't let it go uncommented on. At least I don't have anything coming up in a couple episodes about the militarization of the police and how it's resulted in growing violence over the years. And before you go down to the comments to start defending this one, it also features racist caricatures. Those were removed in the US version, but I'm playing on the Famicom, so I get to see everything. The good news is that Manhattan Cop is also a terrible game. It has the worst control scheme of any family trainer game we've seen so far. In fact, it's so bad that I would have thought that my homemade family trainer was breaking, except Japanese players also noted it as being especially flaky. The family trainer is Bandai's peripheral that allowed players to control games by stepping on a mat. It was called the Power Pad in the US. The goal in Manhattan Police is to walk around a stage and beat up criminals. You'll see the boss criminal as you start a stage, but they don't appear until you take out all the minor ones. Now let's talk about this interface because it is bad. As you'd expect, you walk in place on 6 and 7 to move forward. That is the only logical control. You might have noticed that the game is played from a side view. There are 3 rows that you can walk down, and you step left or right by stepping on 5 and 8. Of course, which way this takes you depends on which way you're facing. But your on-screen character is never facing the same direction as the player, so this is just crossing the control axis on people. Similarly, you have to step on 2 or 3 in order to turn right or left. That matters for when you're at an intersection, or when you have a building you need to go into. Stepping on 1 throws a weapon that you've picked up, and stepping on 4 swings your billy club. Note that these aren't really inconvenient places to step, so doing them quickly in response to your targets on screen is not really viable. Finally, you reverse what direction you're facing by stepping on 10 or 11. Not 10 and 11, 10 or 11. I found that the cop had a bad tendency to just turn himself around. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a map of the level. Typically, only 1 criminal spawns at a time, and you'll have to run them down and then either jump on them, or hit them with a club, or throw things at them. And after you've eliminated the required number of criminals, the boss shows up. And the boss has some gimmick. Like this guy will hide in trash cans, and this guy will charge at you. Once the boss is taken down, you advance to the next stage. The map doesn't show the interiors of buildings, so it doesn't show a path if you have to cross inside a building to get to another area. And criminals inside buildings don't show up either. Some of the buildings have multiple floors too, and you'll have to jump up some platforms to get between floors. You can't attack random passerbys on the street, and I didn't see any penalty for doing that. Also, while you're wandering around, things might drop on your head. They always seem to spawn at the same spot. And if you're standing on gravel, you can't jump. So you have to walk around the obstacles that are there. Most of the power-ups you'll encounter are either health pickups or things that you throw. Thrown objects show up in the lower right. You can also find a dog whistle. If you step on the turnaround button and hold for a few moments, you'll blow the whistle and bring out the dog. One problem with that, if you get hit while you're blowing the whistle, it just goes away and doesn't do anything. I've noticed 2 behaviors from enemies. Either they run away, or worse, they park on top of you. It's really hard to get away from an enemy given how bad the controls are, and you're stunned for a moment after you get hit. That can lead to enemies just hitting you as soon as you get up, and then the process repeating. Even if we ignore the theme, Manhattan Police is pretty bad. I think it's the least playable of all of the Family Trainer games we've seen so far. At least the generic sporting event ones were functional. This is a barely usable tech demo.